Hi, my name is Joel. I'm an undergraduate student at the University of Virginia. I have two questions. My first question is, how important do you think the structure of your fund is to its long-term success? And by that I mean, in the last couple of weeks, some other legendary investors like Julian Robertson and Stanley Druckenmiller have been forced to either close or restructure their funds as a result of a kind of vicious cycle of underperformance and subsequent redemptions, and then even worse performance. Do you think that the structure of your fund as a publicly traded company, as opposed to a private partnership like Tiger and Quantum, has protected your business from a similar fate? Or phrased a different way, do you think that if Tiger or Quantum were structured the way that Berkshire Hathaway is, that they might still be in business in the same way today?
Yeah, we don't consider ourselves in remotely the same business as Tiger or so. I mean, they're managing a securities operation, and we aren't doing anything like what they do. So they have 30 years ago, when I had the partnership, it was much more along their lines, although still far from what they do. But it was structured much more like what they did. And although we had bought control of businesses and all that, we were functioning much more or focusing much more on securities. We don't care whether we own whether we own a stock or a bond, and we will over the next 20 years. But that's not what we're about. We're not a fund. We are an operating business that generates a lot of capital, and uses that to buy other businesses in whole or part. And we prefer in whole, but we sometimes do it in part. But I don't consider, which is a reason why I don't consider book value that important, although it's got the importance I attributed it to it earlier. But we could easily have 90% of the value of Berkshire 10 years from now be represented by businesses that we own, and 10% by securities, or we could very easily have 60 or 70% represented by securities, depending on how markets develop. I hope it develops in the former way, but I'm perfectly willing to go the other way too. But it just has no relationship to the kind of funds you talk about. And we are structured poorly from a tax standpoint compared to those fellows, and compared to what I used to have. That's a decision we made, and we're stuck with it more or less. It's not a great tax structure if you're going to own securities, but we may not own that many securities over time. Charlie?
Well, I do think that the people in the relative performance game who are trying to attract so-called hot money are living in a totally different world from ours. I mean, Soros, in the end, was not willing to have a lot of people make a lot of money in high-tech stocks and not be part of that game, and they got killed. We're perfectly willing to let something we don't understand very well rage on while a lot of other people make a lot of money we don't.
Yeah, it's just not a securities operation that we have. We own a lot of securities at present, and we'll probably own a lot 5 or 10 years from now. But it's not what Berkshire is necessarily about. Ideally, I would love it if we could move all the money in securities into businesses that we liked. But that isn't going to happen in all probability. It's too tough because we can't find multi-billion-dollar businesses to buy right and left. We find a few, but they tend to be small. Number 5.